Hi, this is Scott Seaton, music director of the North State Symphony, and we are gathered today for another edition of Musician Accents. And this week we are featuring one of our clarinetists, Bruce Belton. Bruce, how are you doing?
Good morning. Great. Thank you.
And it's to start off simply. It's been such a long time since we've seen each other. It's kind
Yes.
of kind of absurd at this point. But how have you been all these months? What have you been? How have you been holding up? What's been keeping you busy?
Yeah. Oh, thanks for asking. I think, like everybody, feeling a little pressure of the sort of overwhelming circumstances. I mean, we had the pandemic and then we added fires to that, which is, just Mother Nature needs to give us a break, right? But
It seems like it's never ending. Yeah.
it does. It does. But I think the music has been, I'm able to work a little bit at home. Still, luckily, I have a job where I can work from home. So I'm doing that on a very part-time basis. And then music has been a super great for my emotional stability and a distraction. To
Yeah.
take a break from Netflix, right?
I feel you.
Yeah, yeah,
Definitely. I've
yeah.
definitely binge watched one too many Netflix series in the past 4 or 5 months. So it's
Have we all? Yes, yeah. So, yeah. So I figured out early on that all my music gigs were canceled, like yours and everyone else's. And so now what? So I started practicing very diligently. I signed up for clarinet lessons with my teacher on Zoom,
oh,
and she's in
nice.
Los Angeles, which I hadn't had clarinet lessons in many, many years. So it's been good. And then I thought I could record some music myself in my living room. I had done a piece by Steve Reich many years ago called the New York Counterpoint.
Hmm.
I'm sure you're familiar with, and it was written for his name now escapes me, a very famous clarinetist, but it's 8 clarinet parts and 3 bass clarinet parts, and basically you pre-record 10 and you perform 1 live.
Hmm.
So I thought, well, I could do that on a smaller scale in my living room. I had a studio engineer to help me with the first time, and that was many years ago. But so I started recording, and I picked up some stuff, and it's like a jigsaw puzzle. You sort of build it up in stacks, and as you go, it starts to sound better and better. And I thought, yeah, it's not bad. So then I just kept going with that and picking new music, most of it not clarinet music. I frankly don't really like clarinet music.
Sounds like me and saxophone music.
Yeah, well, I'm stuck. So I found a lot of other music, most string quartets and other kinds of pieces that I rearranged for clarinets and recorded it. And I've recorded like 25 works now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw some of your recordings on the Performing Arts Society YouTube page,
Yeah.
and I mean, actually, it's your YouTube page that
It
you're
is.
you're, and wow. So what for you? What has this been a learning curve? What's the process putting all this stuff together? What
Yeah.
program are you using?
Yeah, big learning curve. So I had much of the music recorded. And then when I was asked, which I'm using Logic Pro on a Mac,
Okay,
which
okay,
I had in my living room. And then I was asked to do a program, and I realized these programs are visual. So I had no video to add, or no video experience. But I started kind of looking around, and Apple offered a free copy of Final Cut Pro for 90 days.
really?
So maybe I can figure this out. So I kind of did, and I just keep poking and clicking undo when it goes wrong.
Yeah.
Added, some canned content, and I took some videos all done on iPhone, which is not ideal, as I find out. But
No, but they're extraordinarily high quality. It looks great.
yeah, it
Yeah.
works okay. And so, yeah, I just kept fooling around. Eventually, I ended up with 10 very short pieces for a
Hmm.
program on October 9th for
Yeah.
PAS. So never more than like one movement of a piece. Most of them are like 2.5 minutes, and there's one
Yeah.
in there that's 10, and that's it. So those will all be put together, I assume, as some kind of playlist for October 9th.
So October 9th, how for anyone listening, how can we check that out?
Yeah, it's 7:30. It's going to be a YouTube premiere, which I understand makes something available at a specific date and time, and then it maybe stays up for a while. I'm not quite sure how that works, but
Okay.
the Performing Arts Society of Reading, you could Google that.
Will it
You
be
could,
on their YouTube page?
it will. Well,
Okay.
yeah, it will. It definitely will. Right, and
Okay.
I think it's pasreading.org
Great.
is the URL.
Okay. Well, that aside, and I definitely look forward to checking that out, and I hope everyone else can tune in as well. Let's backtrack a little bit and really dig into who is Bruce Belton? And my first question to you is how long have you been playing with the North State Symphony?
Well, a long time. So I started with the Reading Symphony and Chico Symphony probably in 1985 or
Wow.
thereabout.
Okay.
Yeah, and then the Reading Symphony at some point morphed into the Chico Symphony. And at the time, the principal wind spots were taken in the Chico Symphony by the wind professors at the university. So
Right.
my clarinet spot went away at the time of merger. And then sometime later, I guess that ended, and I played, I think maybe one season with you as principal, and Dr. Burnham retired, and then after that, just on and off. So it's been from '85 to now, and however many times I played or didn't, don't know.
Right, right. Yeah, I remember. I think it was my first season when I was, we were just starting to get to know each other, and we
Okay.
were working on the Rachmaninoff symphonic dances, and
Oh yeah, I played bass on that.
and the saxophone part.
I did. That was yes.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
No, that was a fun time because uh, um, I had this crazy idea at first that I would try to play and conduct that at the same
And I
time, and of
thought you
course.
should actually.
But
Turn around from the podium and play the sax solo. Wonderful.
I love doing that. However, that's one of the pieces where there's just so much nuance in the background. I think there wouldn't be enough time to rehearse all of that thoroughly.
Yeah.
But you did such a wonderful job with that solo, and I hope you had as wonderful time playing it as I did back in many years ago. But was that your first time playing the Rachmaninoff?
It was, yeah. I had played saxophone in orchestra some, and I only dabbled in saxophone. It's not my primary instrument.
Right.
Lieutenant Kiji, Prokofiev, and then did the whatever the one is, the not Night on Bald Mountain, but Mussorgsky Pictures and Exhibition.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, and you have a beautiful, clear, crisp brown tone, and I really love the sound that you gave to that piece, especially. So, backing up even to talk about that. So, did you start out in clarinet? How did you get? Where did the music begin for you?
Oh, well, yeah, that's a long time ago. So I was a guitarist as a young man and then a young boy, and then into high school. I played classical guitar.
Wow.
And I got asked to play in our local symphony. We did a Villalobos piece. It wasn't a guitar concerto, but it had a guitar, honest guitar part in the orchestra. Mm-hmm. And then I thought, well, I never get to ask to play in large groups. And so then I went to the school band, said, what do you got for instruments, And they handed me a clarinet. And I was 16 years old at the time.
Really? Okay.
I thought, I want to play in groups. So I just started playing it, started taking lessons right away. And then that was how I got started.
So it stuck with you. Something resonated within you with the clarinet.
Yeah, I think I picked it up pretty quickly. I already had music. I could already read music. I'd already been taking guitar lessons for probably 7 or 8 years. So it was so it worked well for me, and I excelled quickly, and then kept going with it.
So walk us through those sort of formative years. Did you study clarinet in college? Did you what was your progression after that?
Yeah, so I was a science person in college, and then I had music going simultaneously, and then at some point I decided I wanted to pursue music as a career, and I went to graduate school in music in Boston. And then somewhere near the end of that, I kind of had another career path change. And so I went to pursue another day job, and I took about 10 years off from playing music.
Wow.
But when I came back to it after I moved to Reading, then I just kind of started playing, occasionally with local groups, and a lot more now since I've retired. So mostly retired. I play a lot more now. So.
Because now you can do it for the love of it, and
not
have to worry.
Right. That's it. Right. Yeah. It's great.
Well, I hope everyone can get to that state of bliss at some point, and just not have to worry about paying bills with music and all of that.
It's good. I think that's one of the things was spoiling. It made music hard for me because I did want to have a roof over my head, provide for my family, and eat. And so
eating, it's overrated.
So so I went for the day job, but it's fine.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Now, when you had picked up the clarinet at 16, what was there something specific to clarinet, or was there another sort of musical experience that you can pinpoint that said, "I want to try to do a career in music"? Is there something that pops into your head?
I had well, the clarinet was a total mistake. So I actually went in and I asked for an oboe or bassoon because I wanted something more, thinking, yeah, exotic. But
Right.
the odds smiled at me on that day, and I did not get an oboe or bassoon. Thank you. Not that I don't love the instruments, but the reed thing would just have been made me crazier than I already am.
Oh, oh, I
So,
know. I played oboe for a fair bit in high
yeah,
school, and I'm really happy that
right.
it ended there.
Yeah, I understand. Most oboes probably would, hope for the same outcome, but yeah. So I
But
feel lucky that I got the clarinet, partly because there's so much variety of literature for the thing. You can be a
right.
legitimate jazz player. You can play classical. You can play, 20th century music. You can do, and plus I've added the bass clarinet to my repertoire, and so I just have a ton of music I can play. Even,
Oh, absolutely.
great. So I feel really lucky that
Yeah,
way.
the clarinet is such a versatile instrument, and just the range is incredible, and the ability to produce so many different timbres and so many different colors throughohout the instrument. It's remarkable. Saxophone is not quite as flexible, and I'm sort of jealous of the
Oh,
clarinet's range in that respect. But to backtrack tiny little bit, Bruce and I, we love our oboe friends. We respect you guys immensely. The reed making process, we just do not comprehend it all.
now I've switched to plastic reeds. So about
Oh
5 years
yeah,
ago, I switched completely over to Leger plastic reeds, and they're not quite as good. I would say they're reliably mediocre,
really.
which is a big improvement from what I had before, which was great or horrible and mostly horrible. So
Right. Yeah. I have
great.
a teacher that I was with in Boston, Ken Radnofsky, who I think nowadays uses almost exclusively plastic reeds.
Right,
And so I have one that, whenever I need to play a piece that has a low, soft
right.
demand, plastic reeds work wonders. But
Yeah,
when you really need to play, something very present and loud and it
they
doesn't
do.
really cut it a lot of times. So if you want something that is consistent through all the registers, but doesn't
Right,
give you the range that you really
right,
need,
right. Yeah,
plastic is good sometimes for me.
yeah, yeah.
But
Yes, it's been nice because I could practice more than just worrying about reeds. I think I spent a third of my time on reeds and two-thirds practicing. Now the reeds, they're not all the same. But you can basically put one on there. It'll play, kind of okay for about a year. Um, so I've just sort of compromised. I thought it's not the most beautiful tone I ever made in my life, but it's, if you ask people who don't play the clarinet, you say, "Oh, how do you think this?" Oh, they say, "Oh, you sound great." So it's like, I think we're more our own playing than other people are noticing.
right. Um, with going back to what you like, because you've been doing all this stuff for Performing Arts Society, and it seems like you have a real affinity for not just the old classics, the Bachs, the Beethovens, the Brahms, but you love new music and experimenting and promoting living composers. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I do. I think I was drawn to 20th century music early on. Partly, I find that playing something like the Mozart Quintet, which we're going to do in a couple of weeks
Right.
for North State, it requires this level of finesse in your technique that to do it well is extraordinarily high bar.
Right.
Yes, you're only playing a C major scale, but it needs to be perfectly even, sound, rhythm, intonation, all of that. And when you sit and concentrate and try to do something with that level of perfection, it's very, very difficult. I think 20th century music gives you a little bit more room to be sloppy. Maybe that's not the right word, but it calls upon you.
Nobody knows it.
Yeah, that's it, and no one knows. True, true, but yeah, and I'm more drawn to maybe the harmonic language of modernist stuff than the classical is very beautiful. It's like a classical painting. It's beautifully done. You could admire it, but it's within a certain box of harmonic structure, melodic structure, and it's very beautiful. But it has this kind of historical interest to me that's not
Yeah.
as engaging as newer stuff. So
Right, exactly. And going back to Mozart for a second, which you were talking about the demands of Mozart. It's almost as if um, we as musicians, the collective musicians, our warm-ups are designed so that we can eventually play Mozart, our da 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 dee da 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 dee da da dee da da da, to try to get that clarity, that precision between every single note on just a major scale, and to make sure there's no blemishes, nothing really stands out more than another note. And that's especially difficult on a wind instrument, for example,
yeah,
because they're imperfect to begin with, not like a piano where everything is supposed to be uniform. But playing Mozart on a wind instrument, especially, or a brass instrument, has such phenomenal challenges associated with it. And um, people don't really understand this, but just, Mozart's all about that clarity of sound, and that just how all of these 16th notes, every single one should be heard with this clearness and precision that it's got to be there. You can't, it's not like jazz where you can just ghost a note or two here and there and still get the ultimate desired product. But Mozart is about every single note, and that's
it
what's
is.
so difficult about it.
Yeah, when I hear a pianist play a Mozart concerto beautifully, the goal, those beautiful scales that just, it's mind blowing to me, because I think I can never achieve that on the clarinet, right? And wouldn't it be great if you could? I mean, there's a few world-class players who kind of get close, but weirdly, Mozart is something that gets assigned to students when we're new. So I think I played the Mozart concerto badly when I was 16. Oh, right. Oh, yeah. Well, it's in C, so you can do that, right? It's an odd sort of juxtaposition between, they give it to new kids who just learning to play, but then when you get later in life and you're, nearing the end of your playing career, you're thinking, this is way too hard. I can't do it. Yeah.
New music aside, as you were, developing as a musician, or even now, were there any, composers, or just a group of composers that especially influenced you, or that you still love today? Or do you have a single composer that you could say is your favorite composer?
I don't have a single composer. It's just that in each of the various periods of music, I think I can pick a few that I liked. But what I found myself drawn to, and not exactly sure why, but sort of more minimalist music. And maybe I find that it's more of a project of construction than playing a musical line. And I found that really interesting, I guess, from a technical standpoint. For one, I didn't have to practice it very hard usually, because it's, the 8-note repeated pattern 40 times or something. But the putting of it all together, it's like this really fascinating jigsaw puzzle. So I started with that Steve Reich piece, which I was amazed that I could actually pull off. And then since I have commissioned, actually, I think 6 now works for bass, clarinet, and string quartet.
Mm-hmm.
I
Wow.
was with the Friction Quartet in San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
We've recorded 2 of them. I'm going to try to record some more later on, but we hired Mark Mellitz, who's one of the composers whose work is being done on the October program for North State. And then
Exactly.
and he wrote a quintet for me. And then also Michael Torkey wrote a quintet for me. Wonderful piece. And so
Really?
those guys kind of, yeah, they embrace a style that I really enjoy working on, learning on, and putting together.
Torquay especially, I mean, we're talking about minimalism, and I actually heard a very interesting interview with Torquay the other day. But he was talking about the enormous flexibility that you have when you have this minimalist palette as a composer, and
Yes.
you have this bed of sound, and just instilling change on the micro level is probably
Yes.
one of the most fun things. It's this music that you are just completely absorbed by, and at the same
Right.
time you don't have to necessarily focus on. You just feel the changes more than anything else, because they've had time to embed themselves within you, and that's what I really love about it. But Torquay's music is a lot of it's extraordinarily difficult and very, very rhythmic, and even though it fits under the minimalist umbrella, you the sense of rhythm that musicians have to have going into Torquay's music has to be pretty high, because he loves these bop dum ba da da ba da da da. All of these little just weird ways of counting things, and then oftentimes borrowing things. And I love that with his music. I love the challenge of it, especially his orchestral music, because it is so varied. You'll have these splashes of sound that in one moment can sound like John Williams, or even moments of like Anton Bruckner or something grandiose like that, and then he adds these passages where you feel like, oh, it could be Steve Reich or something like that. It's like an enormous blend of all kinds of different compositional styles, and that's what I love about him.
Yeah, it's funny you said, it's really hard, because the last time I met with him, we were having breakfast somewhere, and he said, well, people always say my music is just really easy. And I said, who says that? That was his impression of, he wasn't writing stuff that has, I guess from, his compositional style, he doesn't write music that has insanely difficult meter changes, or, crazy things you have to stare at on the page for a long time to figure out, well, how do I even play that? It's more, it's pretty readable, but as you say, it's there's so many moving pieces that fall in different places that even that quintet for the bass clarinet strings was, that was the hardest thing I've ever learned on the bass clarinet practicing.
Is there a recording of that somewhere online?
Only, well, let's see, no. There's a recording of Mark Mellett's piece,
right,
on the quintet. Michael's piece, we got waylaid. My bass clarinet cracked in the recording studio, so we had to stop in the middle, and we'll have to resume that one day when we are able to play together again.
Oh my.
Yeah.
Well, how going back to Michael Torke for a second, how did you cross paths with him?
Oh, I had decided I was going to commission some works for bass clarinet strings.
Mm-hmm.
Aren't very many, maybe a dozen pieces. There's like 200 clarinet quintets, and when I say that, I mean clarinet plus string quartet. But maybe I found 8 or 10 for bass clarinet and strings.
Oh, okay.
Formed a couple of them, and then I thought, well, there should be more music, and maybe I'd never commissioned anything, had no idea about cost or process. But Michael's, there was a CD called Life Music by the Ying Quartet, and they did a piece on there called Corner in Manhattan, one of Michael's string quartets, which I just loved. I had listened to like 15 years earlier. And then when I was thinking about commissioning a piece, I just looked him up on his website, emailed him, and said, are you interested? Yeah, I got a break right now, I can do it. So I was on a trip. I met him in New York, and then we talked about what it should be like. And I expressed to him that although this is not essential, I would like to be able to play the piece as a amateur musician.
Mm-hmm.
He was all about that. He said, absolutely.
Oh, great.
So I was hoping he's not going to write something that is beyond my ability. And it's on the cusp, but I was able to get all the right notes in the right places. So yeah, so that's how I did it, Yeah, and I did that with other composers. Same thing. I just look them up on the internet and email them, and some were not available, and some were.
Yeah. Well, that's great, Bruce. I mean, that's small gestures like that, just touching base with the composer and asking him or her to write music. That's fantastic, and needs to be done more often. But
some more in the works too. So I got a quartet for 2 basses and 2 clarinets that Mark Melitz is writing for me. And I got a trio for clarinet, bass, piano, and cello being written by a composer in Buenos Aires. Those are still projects yet to come. So.
Oh, that's great. Do you get to go down to Buenos Aires?
I was supposed to be there in June.
Oh, really?
Didn't happen. So yeah.
Well, hopefully in the coming months, things will start to normalize a little bit, and we can start to do all the trips that we were supposed to do. Well, Bruce, thank you so much for taking time to chat with me today, and it was nice to learn a little bit more about you, and I hope our listeners enjoy your background as well. And like you've said, you are going to play the Mozart clarinet quintet with the North State Symphony for our October concert,
right.
And it's all part of our virtual series that we've sort of landed in, by no real choice of ours, just the world we're living in nowadays. Of course, we would much rather be in the concert hall and able to to experience the energy and the uniqueness of live music. But at the same time, I'm very happy that all of us in the arts have been forced to think outside the box and continue to innovate and find ways to reach our audience in ways that we never really dreamed of
Yeah.
in many ways before. So I very much look forward to hearing what you do with the Mozart. I think it's gonna, I'm sure it'll be fantastic. I can't wait to hear how that project comes together. So, Bruce, I hope we get to actually make music in the same room sometime in the near future.
I'm sure we will.
Yeah. Until then, I hope you stay safe and continue to stay healthy. And I look forward to working with you soon.
Great. Likewise, Scott. Nice to see you again.